Somewhere in upstate New York right now, there is a town where the median age of the population is 13. Not a typo. 13. That is entry number 2 on this list, and the reason the median age is that low is a story that goes back to a rebbe in 1970s Brooklyn. But that is not even the strangest place on this list. We have a village with a population of 50 that has its own mayor, its own police force, and its own board of trustees. We have a ghost town that was abandoned twice, and a town that is sitting underwater right now, with buildings you can still see when the reservoir gets low enough. And the number 1 entry is a gated hamlet on a lake in western New York where more than 50 registered mediums live year-round, communicate with the dead as a profession, and have to pass a year-long audition before they are allowed to do it. Susan B. Anthony used to visit. This list is wild. Let us get into it. Number 10. Daring Harbor. Take the ferry from Greenport across Shelter Island Sound, drive a few minutes through the quiet lanes of Shelter Island, and you will reach the entrance to Daring Harbor, a village of 35 houses on 200 acres at the north end of the island. There is a village hall. There is a mayor. There is a board of trustees. There is a clerk. There is a dedicated police department that patrols less than a quarter of a square mile. And as of the 2020 census, there are 50 people. Daring Harbor is the smallest incorporated village in New York State by population, and the fact that it has a functioning government at all is the kind of absurdity that only makes sense when you know how it started. In 1874, a sprawling resort hotel called the Manhasset House went up on this strip of land, 300 rooms designed to attract the Manhattan elite. General William Tecumseh Sherman stayed there. John Philip Sousa played there. J.P. Morgan docked his yacht in the harbor. The resort burned in 1896, was rebuilt, and then burned again in 1910. This time it was not replaced. Private cottages filled the gaps, and in 1916 the residents incorporated as a village, naming it after Thomas Daring, a former member of the United States House of Representatives. The architecture is a catalog of early 20th century ambition. Victorian gingerbread, Queen Anne, Tudor, neoclassical, most of it designed by Alfred Easton Poor, who also designed parts of the Pentagon. A cluster of capacious cottages on one end of the village was once called Little German, because several German-speaking Manhattanites built summer homes there, including one designed by Stanford White, since demolished. Every one of these houses sits in a village with fewer residents than a moderately busy restaurant. The median household income has been reported as high as $98,750, but the more remarkable statistic is this. Between the 2000 and the 2010 census, the population dropped from 13 to 11. Then it quadrupled to 50 by 2020. The biggest population boom in Daring Harbor's history still left it smaller than most apartment buildings. 50 people, a dedicated police department, a mayor, and architecture designed by the man who helped build the Pentagon. Number 9. Pine Bush. Drive into Pine Bush on a weekday, and the first thing you notice is the alien. There is a mural of one on the side of a building on Main Street. Then you notice the flying saucers painted on the windows of the barbershop. Then you see the Pine Bush UFO and Paranormal Museum sitting right on the main road, open Wednesday through Sunday, offering both self-guided and exclusive 90-minute tours of exhibits on abduction, strange lights, and something called Bigfoot-style creatures that reportedly roam the surrounding woods. Pine Bush is the self-proclaimed UFO capital of the East Coast, and the claim is not based on a single incident. Sightings here go back over a century, reported by farmers, shopkeepers, and, later, by people who specifically came to see what the farmers and shopkeepers had been reporting. But the phenomenon exploded in the early 1980s. On March 24, 1983, more than 300 people reported witnessing a massive, silent V-shaped craft drifting low over the region, its multicolored lights glowing against the night sky. Some witnesses described it as the length of a football field. Others called it a floating city. Police officers filed reports. Pilots reported near misses. Sightings multiplied into the thousands over the following decade, concentrated along West Searsville Road and the open fields between Pine Bush and the neighboring towns of Montgomery and Walden. A diner called the Cup and Saucer opened to feed the skywatchers who came from across the country to stand in those fields at night and wait. The fields are mostly gone now, filled with housing developments and condos, and sightings have dropped significantly since the 90s. But every June, the annual Pine Bush UFO Fair takes over Main Street. Thousands of visitors arrive. Costumed aliens walk alongside people who are not joking at all. The museum stays packed. The barber shop is still full of UFO memorabilia. A hamlet of fewer than 2,000 people that watched something enormous and silent drift over their valley in 1983 and decided, reasonably enough, to build an entire identity around it. Number 8. Broad Channel, Queens. Step off the A train at Broad Channel Station, and you are standing in what looks like a fishing village in coastal New England, except you are inside New York City limits. Houses are built on stilts over tidal water. Wooden walkways lead to front doors that hover above Jamaica Bay. Small boats bob at the ends of backyard docks. Nets and lobster traps are stacked along narrow streets that dead end at canals. The Manhattan skyline is visible to the north. The sound of waves against pilings is underneath everything. Broad Channel sits on the only permanently inhabited island in Jamaica Bay. It is 20 blocks long and 4 blocks wide, and about 2,500 people live here, almost all of them on land that was originally marsh. The Broad Channel Corporation filled the wetlands starting around 1914 and rented parcels of land for $116 a year to fishermen, who built shacks, and then to families who turned the shacks into houses. For decades, the only way to reach Broad Channel was by ferry or train. Cross Bay Boulevard was not built until 1925, and the subway did not arrive until 1956. Until 1975, passengers had to pay an extra fare to exit the station because it was considered too far from everywhere else in the system. During Prohibition, the island's isolation made it a natural base for rum runners smuggling liquor from boats anchored offshore. Then Robert Moses tried to turn it into a park and evict everyone. The community resisted, and Moses eventually settled for building the Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge on the northern half of the island instead. Today, Broad Channel exists in a permanent state of improbability, a tight-knit working-class village of cops, firefighters, and fishermen sitting inside a 9,000-acre federal wildlife refuge that is home to 300 species of birds. The great blue heron and the glossy ibis nest within sight of the subway platform. When Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012, the entire island flooded. Residents rebuilt. Nobody left. The community's unofficial motto, painted on a sign near Cross Bay Boulevard, reads, "Broad Channel, the Venice of New York." A neighborhood reachable by subway where herons wade past houses on stilts, and the Manhattan skyline glitters across the bay like something from a different country. Sticking with us so far? Good, because the next 4 entries are where this list gets genuinely hard to believe. Number 7. Tahawus. Drive to the end of County Route 25 in the town of Newcomb, deep in the Adirondack High Peaks, and the road simply stops. Beyond it, in a clearing surrounded by second-growth forest, you will find the stone tower of a blast furnace built in 1854, the stabilized shell of a cottage where a vice president once slept, and the foundations of a village that was abandoned not once but twice. Tahawus started as an iron mining settlement in the 1820s when Archibald McIntyre and David Henderson were guided to an enormous iron deposit by Louis Elijah Benedict, a member of the Abenaki tribe. They founded the Adirondack Iron and Steel Company and built a village, houses, a bank, a church, a sawmill, a gristmill, a blast furnace. The bank was the first chartered bank in the Adirondacks. It printed its own money. Then the miners discovered a problem. An unknown impurity in the ore was making the iron impossible to refine efficiently. The operation collapsed. The village was abandoned in 1857. Here is the detail that still gets me. The impurity was titanium. The mineral that killed the mine the first time turned out to be vastly more valuable than the iron they were looking for. In 1941, the federal government built a railroad into the site and reopened the mines to extract titanium dioxide for the war effort. Tahawus became one of the largest titanium mines in the world. A new village was built, 16 dwellings, a school, a YMCA. Then in 1962, the mining company relocated operations to nearby Newcomb, and the village was abandoned a second time. In between those two lives, in September 1901, Vice President Theodore Roosevelt was staying at the cottage on the property. By then called the Tahawus Club, a private hunting and fishing retreat, when a telegram arrived informing him that President McKinley, who had been shot days earlier in Buffalo, was dying. Roosevelt left on a midnight ride down the mountain by buckboard wagon through mud and darkness to North Creek, where a special train was waiting. McKinley died while Roosevelt was still in transit. He became the 26th President of the United States during the ride, a ghost town abandoned twice where a man became president in the middle of the night and where the mineral that destroyed the first mine turned out to be the treasure all along. Number 6. Gardiners Island. 3 miles off the eastern tip of Long Island, between the North Fork and the South Fork, there is a star-shaped island roughly 6 miles long and 3 miles wide that has been owned by a single family for nearly 400 years. You cannot visit it. You have never been invited. Almost no one has. In 1639, an English soldier named Lyon Gardiner purchased the island from the Montaukett chief Wyandanch for a large black dog, some Dutch blankets, and a small quantity of gunpowder. King Charles I signed a royal decree granting Gardiner the right to possess the land forever. Nearly 4 centuries later, Gardiners Island remains the only piece of real estate in the United States still held under an original royal grant from the English crown. The history that accumulated on this island would be rejected as fiction. In 1657, Lyon Gardiner's daughter Elizabeth, at 15 years old, made accusations that led to the first witch trial in an English colony in America. In 1699, the pirate captain William Kidd buried $30,000 worth of treasure on the island: rubies, diamonds, bars of silver, which was later dug up and used as evidence in his trial. During the American Revolution, British forces occupied the island and cut down every tree. The family rebuilt. The manor house burned in 1947. They rebuilt again. The carpenter's shed, believed to date to 1639, is thought to be the oldest wooden structure still standing in New York State. Today, the island is owned by Alexandra Creel Golet, a 16th-generation Gardiner descendant. It contains 1,000 acres of rare old-growth forest and New York State's largest osprey colony. The family manor was rebuilt after a fire in 1947 and is reportedly filled with heirlooms, including a silver chalice from 1635, 84 gold plates from the 1750s engraved with scenes of the island, and a Spanish gold cross decorated with emeralds and rubies. The property was last formally appraised in 1989 at $125 million. Nobody is allowed to visit without an invitation, and invitations are not extended. One family, one island, one royal decree, nearly 400 years, and a carpenter's shed from the year the first Gardiner arrived still standing in the clearing. Still here? Good. Because the top 5 entries are the ones that made me stop researching and just stare at the screen. Number 5. Neversink. Drive along Route 55 through Sullivan County and you will pass the Neversink Reservoir, a vast sheet of blue water surrounded by mountains. It is beautiful. It is also sitting on top of a town. The original village of Neversink is underneath that water. It has been there since 1953. In the 1940s, New York City needed more drinking water. The Board of Water Supply selected a valley in the Catskills, where the village of Neversink and the neighboring community of Bittersweet had existed since the late 18th century. Neversink had a main street, a church, a post office, a covered bridge, a 2-room schoolhouse, and a population of roughly 2,000 people. Had been living there for 150 years. The state invoked eminent domain. Residents were told to leave. Homes were demolished. Churches were torn down. Cemeteries were dug up with some bodies relocated to proper graves and others placed in common burial sites. The covered bridge was dismantled. The post office closed. Residents later said they received eviction notices nailed to their doors, and the state took years to pay some families for their property. On June 4, 1953, the valley was flooded. The town of Neversink, population roughly 2,000, vanished under 175 feet of water. Some homes were physically lifted off their foundations and moved a few miles down Route 55 to a new location, which became the present-day town of Neversink. Others were demolished and left behind. Bittersweet was not relocated. It simply ceased to exist. Locals say that when the reservoir drops low enough during drought, you can see the outlines of foundations and stone walls beneath the surface. One caller to a local radio station described seeing a church steeple emerge from the water during a particularly bad dry spell, though the claim has never been confirmed by officials. The town of Neversink also remained completely dry, no alcohol sales of any kind, from the 1930s until 2015, when residents finally voted to allow restaurants to serve beer and wine. Convenience stores followed shortly after. A town that was literally drowned stayed metaphorically dry for another 62 years. A town called Neversink that sank, sitting under 175 feet of drinking water for New York City, visible from the highway that runs right past it. Number 4. Tuxedo Park. You do not drive into Tuxedo Park. You drive up to a stone gate in the Ramapo Mountains, 38 miles north of New York City, and a police officer in a guardhouse decides whether you belong. This has been happening every day, around the clock, for 140 years. Tuxedo Park is America's first gated community. And the gate is not a metaphor. In 1885, tobacco heir Pierre Lorillard IV looked at 6,000 acres of mountain wilderness in Orange County and decided to build a private paradise. He hired architect Bruce Price and imported 1,800 craftsmen from Italy. In 9 months, they built 22 cottages, each between 6,000 and 9,000 square feet, plus 30 miles of private road, a private police station, and a clubhouse. The entire property was surrounded by a barbed wire fence 8 feet tall and 24 miles long. Cornelius Vanderbilt built a dedicated train station and a private rail line from Grand Central Terminal directly to the village. The evening dress for men known worldwide as the tuxedo was invented here. At the Autumn Ball of 1886, a young man named Griswold Lorillard appeared wearing a tailless dinner jacket instead of the standard white tie tails. The outfit caused a scandal. Within a decade, every man in America wanted one, and they called it by the name of the place where it had first been seen. Today, Tuxedo Park is still gated. The village has its own mayor, its own police force, its own water supply, its own sewage system, and its own swim club and boat club. The homes are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Bruce Price's original designs sit alongside later mansions by Stanford White and Carrere and Hastings, architects of the New York Public Library. The village also played a role in the Second World War. A physicist named Alfred Lee Loomis built a private laboratory at Tuxedo Park where he and other scientists developed microwave radar technology that would prove critical to the Allied war effort. The mansions sit on glacial lakes beneath mountains, and the nearest coffee shop feels like it belongs to a different civilization entirely. A village that invented the tuxedo guarded its front gate for 140 years and still requires a police officer's permission to enter. Number 3. The former Seneca Army Depot, Romulus. Behind a 24-mile perimeter fence between Seneca Lake and Cayuga Lake, in the town of Romulus, there is a herd of roughly 200 white deer, wandering through the ruins of what was once the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the United States Army. The Seneca Army Depot was established in 1941 as a munitions storage facility. During the Second World War, it supplied nearly all of the ammunition and military equipment sent across the Atlantic. During the Cold War, though the Department of Defense has never formally confirmed it, the depot held the largest concentration of Army nuclear weapons in the country. The igloos on the south end stored radioactive materials connected to the Manhattan Project. When the Army fenced in 10,600 acres in 1941, it inadvertently trapped a small herd of white-tailed deer, some of which carried a rare recessive gene for white coats. The condition is called leucism, not albinism. The deer have white fur but brown eyes. Protected from predators and hunters inside the fence, and aided by a depot commander in the 1950s who forbade soldiers from shooting any white deer, while allowing the brown deer to be culled, the white population grew through a process of artificial selection. Today, the herd numbers roughly 200 out of about 800 total deer behind the fence, the largest concentration of white deer in the world. The Lenape called them ghost deer. Rumors have circulated for decades that the white coats were caused by radiation from the nuclear materials or by Army experiments gone wrong. Neither is true. The deer are simply the product of a recessive gene, a fence, and a 70-year-old order not to shoot anything white. The depot closed in 2000 under the base realignment and closure process. The property was transferred to the Seneca County Industrial Development Agency. The buildings are decaying. The recreation area on the north end of the property is a ghost town. Old sports fields, shuttered buildings, a snapshot stuck in time. The fence still stands. And behind it, the white deer drift through fields that once sat above nuclear warheads, grazing in the shadow of ammunition bunkers that supplied every major American conflict of the 20th century. A bill was introduced in the New York State Senate in 2026 to formally prohibit hunting the white deer on public and state lands. Ghost deer grazing on a nuclear weapons depot, behind a fence that was built to keep the world out and accidentally created something the world had never seen. Number 2. Kiryas Joel, now officially the town of Palm Tree. Drive north from New York City on the New York State Thruway, exit at Harriman, and within minutes you are in a place that looks and sounds nothing like suburban Orange County. The streets are lined with dense apartment blocks. Sidewalks are crowded with men in black coats and fur-trimmed hats. Women in long skirts push strollers past storefronts where every sign is in Yiddish. Schools are everywhere. Children are everywhere. There are so many children that the median age of the village, according to the United States Census, is 13.2 years. That is the youngest median age of any municipality in America. Kiryas Joel is a village of more than 32,000 Yiddish-speaking Satmar Hasidic Jews, compressed into roughly 1.5 square miles. It was founded in the mid-1970s, when followers of the late Satmar Rebbe Joel Teitelbaum began purchasing land in the town of Monroe, looking for a quieter, more insular community than their base in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. 14 families moved there in 1974. By 1976, the community had incorporated as a village. When Rebbe Teitelbaum died in 1979, he was buried in the village cemetery. More than 100,000 people reportedly attended his funeral. The village's explosive growth, driven by a birth rate estimated at 6 to 8 children per family, created intense friction with the surrounding town of Monroe over zoning, water, sewage, and the steady annexation of land. Neighboring communities like Woodbury incorporated as villages specifically to defend against Kiryas Joel's expansion. In November 2017, over 80% of Monroe's voters backed a measure to let Kiryas Joel split off entirely. On January 1, 2019, Kiryas Joel became the town of Palm Tree, an English translation of Teitelbaum, the first new town created in New York State in 35 years, and reportedly the first official ultra-Orthodox town in the United States. The population density is nearly 12,000 people per square mile, making it one of the most densely packed communities in the country outside of Manhattan. A village of 32,000 people where the median age is 13, the English name of the town is a translation of the founding rabbi's surname. And number 1, Lily Dale. Pass through the gate at Lily Dale, under a sign that reads, World's Largest Center for the Religion of Spiritualism. And the first thing you notice is how quiet it is. Victorian cottages line narrow lanes beneath old-growth trees on the shore of Casadaga Lake. Wind chimes hang from nearly every porch. Small signs on the front doors identify the occupants by name and by title. Registered medium. There are more than 50 of them living here year-round. And that number is not an estimate. It is a count. Every medium in Lily Dale is a registered member of the Lily Dale Assembly, and every one of them had to pass a test to get that title. Lily Dale was founded in 1879 as a summer camp for spiritualists, followers of a religious movement that had swept the country after the Fox Sisters of Hydesville, New York. Claimed to communicate with the dead through mysterious knocking sounds in 1848. The camp grew into a hamlet, tents became cottages, cottages became houses. What began as a seasonal retreat became a permanent community. Today, the year-round population is roughly 275, and approximately 22,000 visitors arrive each summer for readings, workshops, healing services, and outdoor demonstrations of mediumship. The testing process is the detail that makes Lily Dale unlike anywhere else. To become a registered medium, a candidate must first be accepted by the assembly. Then they must spend an entire year performing in public, giving readings at outdoor message services where they relay communications from deceased loved ones to strangers in the audience, and conducting Monday night circles for small groups. If the assembly is satisfied after 12 months that the candidate's abilities are genuine, they are registered. If not, they are out. Susan B. Anthony visited Lily Dale multiple times. A historical marker outside the auditorium notes the crowd she drew for a Women's Day event in 1891. The connection is not coincidental. Many of the most prominent mediums during spiritualism's height were women, and the role gave them a public platform at a time when social norms confined women to the home. Lily Dale was, in its way, one of the earliest spaces in America where women held professional authority. The former site of the Fox sisters' cabin is now a small clearing in the woods. Inspiration Stump, a tree stump struck by lightning that mediums identified as a vortex of spiritual energy, has hosted twice daily mediumship demonstrations since the turn of the 20th century. The Healing Temple offers laying on of hands sessions. The museum is in a renovated schoolhouse, a gated hamlet where more than 50 registered mediums live year-round, where the testing process takes a full year, where Susan B. Anthony once spoke, and where twice a day, at a lightning-struck tree stump in the woods, someone stands up and tells a stranger what the dead want them to know. What ties this list together is not that these places are weird, it is that they are committed. Every village on this list is the result of a group of people deciding, at some point, that they were going to do something that nobody else was doing, in a place where nobody expected it, and then staying long enough that the place itself became the thing. Lily Dale did not stumble into mediumship. Tuxedo Park did not accidentally gate itself. The residents of Kiryas Joel did not casually become the youngest municipality in America. These are places built on intention, sometimes beautiful, sometimes strange, sometimes both, and the fact that all of them exist in the same state within a few hours of each other is the part that keeps getting me. New York is famous for the city, and the city deserves it. But the state beyond the city is full of places that are doing things that the city has never heard of, in valleys and on islands and behind fences that most New Yorkers will never see. If you know of a village that belongs on this list, drop it in the comments. I guarantee there are ones we missed. If you made it this far, thank you. Subscribing takes 1 second, and it means we get to keep making these. I will see you in the next one.